So, Halloween's here, and you know what that means? Fear. Scary costumes, jump scares, things that make you feel very uncomfortable, but for me personally, my favorite kind of horror is the sense of panic, defined as sudden, uncontrollable fear or anxiety, and often accompanied by flight, or freeze, moments that make you jump out of your seat, get your heart and legs pumping, and overall have an aura of something or someone trying to get you. Now, if you've been on the internet long enough, I'm pretty sure you've seen someone's take on the scary moments in non-horror games, but for this case, I want to shake it up a little with the top 10 panic-inducing moments in non-horror games. And not to mention, I haven't really played a lot of horror games, so I don't think I could really make a good comprehensive list with those. Now, the rules for this are pretty simple. We're looking for moments that are sudden in their execution and give an overall sense of dread when you're close to danger. It also helps if it can throw you off guard or keep the overall feeling of being unsafe. As most non-horror games aren't typically meant to scare you, the times they do really throw you off guard and excel at these lists. Also, I'm only going to talk about games I played, only one game per franchise, and as always, my opinion is my opinion. My opinion is not fact. So let me know what your favorite panic-inducing moments are in the comments below. But anyways, I'm rambling on. Let's move on to number 10. With The Legend of Zelda, honestly, I feel like you could make an entire top 10 on its own. The Dead Hand, the Silent Realms, Phantoms and Phantom Hourglass, all of them would make great entries if I played them. My backlog's really embarrassing. But thankfully, there is one common fear from a Zelda game that I have played, the Guardians from Breath of the Wild. Long ago, these creatures were found in ruins and originally used for battle when Ganon eventually returns. However, as Ganon's first act, he hacked into the Guardians and turned them against the ones who unearthed them. So, by backstory alone, they're one of the scariest enemies on the list. As for gameplay, they are carefully sprinkled out all over Hyrule, from the plains to all the way up in Death Mountain. Some are stationary, while others are mobile, and when you run into one, be prepared to fight. With the Piano Man going crazy, they slowly charge up a beam in your direction before shooting out a devastating attack. It's fast, can burn up the environment, can hit you from a far distance, and does a massive amount of damage, even if you got additional hearts or ate a hearty meal. It can also take a lot of punishment before going down, and can rotate its head all the way around, so you can't really sneak up on it like other enemies in the game. If you're ill-equipped or lacking ancient weaponry and gear, it's not recommended to go hunt them for yourselves, so for new players, it's always recommended to stay clear of them at all costs, hide behind cover, practice your shield counter, and run like hell if given the chance. As for veterans, well, they're pretty much there for ancient artifact farming. If you know what you're doing, you can take them out by dismembering their mobile joints or reflecting their shots, or if you're really good, you can hit them hard enough before they can hit you, or if you're really good or far in the game, you can unlock ancient weapons, ancient gear, and ancient arrows, all of which were specifically meant to fend off these giant monsters. When you understand how to take out one of these for yourself, they're not nearly as scary as when you first started. I won't deny the fact that they're still terrifying and a threat to watch out for. While they may be slow in their approach and easy to predict, if they can get a good blow, you're going to get hurt badly. While I wouldn't rank them higher than 10, I feel more than comfortable putting these beasts on the list. If you've watched a couple of my previous videos, you know that one of my new favorite games, A Hat in Time. And if you've played it for yourself, or watched my video on the subject, you already know what I'm going to talk about, Queen Vanessa's Manor. Set up as the Snatcher's third contract, it starts off with basic platforming before reaching the cellar of the manor itself. It's cold, damp, and here you realize you can't even use your own hats. How fun! But the real terror is when you go into the first corridor. In a flash of lightning, change of music, and the booming voice sends you scrambling on your feet. And then when you see her herself, she'll jolt after you with the music and environment tensing up as you try to run away. Thankfully, she'll never follow you into another room, but the music, environment, and now her calls out to you will not let up. While making your way to the attic, nearly every action you take can potentially summon her, from stepping on the piano to get the keys to the second floor, or balloons popping before you can get the key to the attic. And the environment and music isn't helping either. The whole level has an eerie, almost singular tone that plays when sneaking around, and a lot of the environment is old, decrepit, and ice statues of those who invaded her home are all over. And on the second floor, well, the room changes every time you re-enter, and you get some insight on the queen you're dealing with. Simply put, she's nuts over a guy. From taking away bacon because he loves it, cutting his hair to match hers, growing jealously over literally any girl who goes near him, ending up blocking him over a simple handshake. The encounters with her end in one last moment with the key right beside her in the shower. Again, scrambling to get up, you have to get up, grab the key, and quickly rush out before she catches you. Once you make it to the attic, the nightmare is over. Vanessa herself, while predictable in her movements, is terrifying to be near around. Not helped by the fact there are a couple segments where you need to be in close proximity of her, but it's that predictability that earns her the number 9 spot. Just leave the room or hide under cover, and you'll never be caught. But still, I can't deny, for first timers, it's terrifying for sure, and for experienced players, it sends shivers up your spine. For sure to make a player panic. So, let's talk about arachnophobia, one of the most common phobias in the world. Surprisingly enough, I couldn't find a lot of potential spider entries for this list, probably because I don't really mind spiders myself, but there's one particular level that I'm pretty sure can make anybody squirm. Muncher Marathon from Donkey Kong Country Returns. Now, spiders aren't anything new to the series, you even play as one in Country 2, but at the same time, DK has never had to deal with this big of a threat before. It starts off basic enough, avoiding crushing spider-themed logs, hopping over frogs, and bouncing on tens of hundreds of spider eggs. Then when pounding to ground to get to the next part, they all decide to hatch! Congratulations, it's an Arby! Now the level went from a basic platformer to a chase between you and well over 10,000 spiders, and they will destroy anything they touch. Walls, barriers, even the enemies aren't safe. All the while, you have to platform across the previously mentioned spider logs, spikes, which you need to climb over, more unhatched spider eggs, and bottomless pitch, which even more spiders will crawl out of. And also, the barriers you need to knock down with your roll, and if you're after the puzzle pieces or comm letters, they're typically out of the way and waste time. Both of these can pull the flock dangerously close to you. At the end of the section, you launch into a burial where you're taken to a brief save haven complete with a checkpoint. But it's not the end. Now you're launching up through the barrels while spiders spill the pit from down below. Like with the last section, along with additional goodies out of the way, you don't have much time to get to the top, so you have to be quick about this. Thankfully, it is a rather short segment, and it is near the end of the level. It may take the additional try your first time, but compared to the other levels, I wouldn't say it cracks the top 10 in difficulty. While I don't mind spiders much in real life, I can't deny that this level terrified me. Well, it's one thing to have a few spiders here and there in the background, but when there's many chasing you all at once, now that's the kind of horror that gets me. While I wouldn't say this level scares me as much as I did back before when I first played it, it's still a great way to make you panic in a relatively calm game. Do you ever go back to something from your childhood that scared you, only to be confused on why it ever scared you in the first place? Games, movies, TV shows. I think everyone has at least one of these moments. But then I played the original Rayman Raving Rabbids. Nope! This is as bad as I remember. While I wouldn't say this is necessarily terrifying, it has a very dark tone and setting, and I think this culminates perfectly in the minigame, Bunnies Are Heartless with Pigs. So for this minigame, you're supposed to guide a pig to its mother through a maze of junk. Problem is, there's rabbits hidden underground, ready to broil the ham you're carrying. Now, what gets it on here is how you find the rabbits. When you're getting close to one, the pig squeals and you have to turn around. Problem being, if you're playing on the Nintendo Wii, which I did, the screams don't come from the game, they come from your Wii remote. So the game expects you to not only keep track of where you're going, but all the while, now the pig's screaming bloody murder in your ear. Now, on its own, the payoff when you lose isn't really that scary or terrifying, but the fact you have a pig yelling in your ear, plus the fact you're on a very strict time limit, means you need to be very careful and listen closely whilst trying to keep it safe. And turning around takes quite a while, so you don't have a lot of time to manage everything. Also, because the game loves to work in twos, they decide to bring this game back, this time with an additional rabbit blowing an air horn. It's not too loud or scary, but it cancels out the pig squeals, and the pig won't pick up until you start moving in a certain direction again. So you could either be walking straight into a death trap, or put the pig into a screaming fit. This segment's rather unique. While the idea and actually losing aren't too terrifying on their own, but having to be precise, quick, and keeping an ear out for potential danger means there's a lot of things you have to watch out for, and very easy to fail. So better pray to RNGesus you find the perfect path if you want to go for the high scores. And to think, this isn't even the most disturbing minigame in the first game, but this is about panicking moments, not disturbing ones. And in terms of panicking the player, this one still gets me, both as a child and an adult. Yep, that's number 6. You're probably wondering how and why the hell this is happening. Well, let's back up a bit. This is Mimi. In Super Paper Mario, she's one of Count Bleck's cronies tasked with stopping Mario to get the pure hearts. Unlike the other minions of the main antagonist, Mimi goes out of her way to impede you all throughout Chapter 2. In 2-2, she sprinkles the floor with all manner of death traps and monsters you need to take care of. In 2-3, she forces you into hard labor in order to repay an overly priced vase. Both of these attempts fail for new power-ups and flipping into the third dimension. So when you encounter her again in 2-4, after refusing more manual labor, things get ugly. And I mean that quite literally. And here we are now, cracking your own head, spinning it around before transforming into a giant spider. Said giant spider can fire her own release to attack you, chases you down the maze of a mansion, and is completely invulnerable. So you not only have to keep track of where you're going, but to avoid Mimi's attacks and stay one step ahead of her. What really cements her place on here is not only her terrifying transformation and her endless chasing, but her design is just creepy and bizarre. Her new head has a singular gaping mouth, she has gears inside of her if you go into 3D, and her body is just dangling by a singular joint as she walks around. All of this makes for an eerie and terrifying chase, but thankfully there's a sigh of relief when you find the girl you're looking for, Merlee. This is followed up by Mimi turning into another Merlee and leading into a quiz in the bathroom itself. Regardless if you pick the real one, the second phase begins, now with a new terrifying theme, nowhere to run, and you're forced to deal with Mimi a second time, now vulnerable after Merlee's magic cheer. While this does make things less panicky, the music and losing her legs every time you hit her is chilling to see. Thankfully, after all 6 legs are destroyed, the battle finally ends. This is a segment that has it all: disturbing energy, scary music, and an overall sense of dread while trying to work your way through. I wouldn't say it's the best of any of these categories, which is why it's not in the top 5. A pity the fight isn't all that hard. Shadow of the Colossus. Hey guys, Future Jeff here with a bit of an announcement. At the time of this recording, in Shadow of the Colossus, I'm starting New Game Plus at the very beginning. As number 5 on here is a pretty late game boss, I unfortunately didn't have the time to go through the whole game again just to fight him. So for the time being, I unfortunately had to use someone else's footage, particularly Fists of Sage, Calm Purple, and the Rad Brad. Check them all out. If there's any issues with the video at all, I'll take it down and I'll figure out some way to get the footage as soon as possible. But anyways, back to the video. You can call this cult classic a lot of things: dark, symbolic, depressing, clunky, etc. But typically, panicking isn't exactly on there. Heck, most of the Colossi only attack you in self-defense or to keep you out of its territory. Of course, there are exceptions here and there, such as the case with the 10th Colossus, nicknamed Dirge. Now, Dirge isn't unlike a lot of Colossi in the game. It's mainly fought on aggro and burrows under the ground before it tries to attack you. It's always actively chasing you throughout the battle. It can leap out to attack you, and it takes aggro going full speed just to get away from it, and if looks could kill, he could instantly flatline you. To defeat Dirge, you have to ride away from him on aggro at full speed while shooting him in the eye with an arrow, making him crash into a wall, where there you can stab him in the head or in the back. Another thing that sets Dirge apart is something you probably haven't thought of: its aggression. Dirge rarely, if ever, stops attacking you, and it's not like you can just turn out of the way. You need to confront the beast itself as you aim right for its piercing orange eyes. Now, when I said sometimes Shadow of the Colossus is clunky, this is a good example, yet oddly enough, it adds more tension to the fight. Shooting arrows on aggro's back isn't as smooth as you think, but aiming it at Dirge's eyes on a rickety horse makes it more tense and worrying if you're not going to make the shot, made even worse by the massive amount of damage Dirge can do to you. Also, do I need to mention his design? Snakes are already freaky folk, but those giant soul-piercing eyes and that strange grin give this beast a surreal look to him. And finally, the last thing that sets it apart, say it with me now, the music. Being the only time this song plays, this is probably some of the best panic-inducing music on the list, and it really sells the feeling of being chased. Not helped by the fact that Dirge is always on the move and always hunting you down when the battle starts, giving an immense sense of panic all throughout the fight. While a majority of the segments may have been filled with games mainly directed towards children, it's neat seeing a game that's meant for an older audience scare you, but not in the traditional way a game would. A perfect contender that barely makes it into the top 5. Sonic the Hedgehog drowning. You know what it is, I know what it is, everyone and their mother knows why water levels and Sonic levels are infamous. Whether it be the 2D classics or even the modern titles, everyone fears drowning in a Sonic game. While you do have the occasional ding which shows you how long you're underwater, but standing in too long causes this music to play. The music starts getting intense, you're moving underwater slow so you can't rush around, platforming is more floating and climbing up the safety is right, or deep enough it's not even an option, and you're running around as fast as you can trying to get it, and the fact the bubbles can only pop in a certain time, and you lose a life. No rings, invincibility, not even Super Sonic can save you. Now, I could just write this off as one big Sonic drowning segment and be done, but it's not that simple. Which drowning is the best drowning? How likely are you to drown? Some titles you would actively have to go out of your way to drown yourself. Also, consider that Sonic 3, Generations, and Mania all give you the Aqua Shield, which can allow you to breathe underwater. So, in the end, it came down to the OG water level, the Labyrinth Zone. Now, the first level, I'd say is relatively fine, as plenty of air bubbles, plus several points above the surface of the water. However, the main issue comes in levels 2 and 3. Not only are there fewer sections of dry land, but air bubbles are more sparse, spikes and badniks are sprinkled throughout, and the badniks have deceptive range or good mobility in the water, which makes them easy to knock you further down the labyrinth below. And of course, this was the game that introduced this infamous theme. Now with both spikes and enemies slowing you down even further, it makes it so much harder to catch, and you start to panic and rush, and it's so hard because you slowed and you did. And finally, there's the encounter with Eggman, who oddly enough never directly attacks you. Rather it's set up as an obstacle course with fireballs and spikes shooting out of the walls, along with the water level rising, and this time, no air bubbles, so there's no time to waste. Oddly enough, I would consider this one of the easiest parts of the zone. You're likely not to worry about drowning, but regardless, even with the boss that eases the tension, the whole level feels like tension and stress incarnate, and Sega knows about its infamy, and water levels where you can drown have now become a staple of the blue blur. Game & Wario's a very different experience from the rest of the WarioWare series. Instead of quick microgames, each character has their own entirely different minigames, both with a focus on the Wii U gamepad. Some work well, some don't, but of course, you can't leave a good idea down for good, so the microgames stay in 9 volts level Gamer. So this version of the microgames plays a bit differently, primarily using the control stick and the A button. The minigames overall are simplistic in the WarioWare sort of way, but the real issue comes with his mother 5-volts, who will frequently check up on you by opening the door, opening your window, or looking at your TV, not helping by this terrifying chord and footsteps whenever she gets close. So it becomes a test of multitasking, doing good enough in the microgames so you don't get a game over, yet at the same time making sure 5-volt doesn't catch you playing games, otherwise being caught is an instant game over as well. Also not helped by the fact that the game loves to fake you out. The old man with the wig is easy enough to catch, but the TV turning on and off and the cat opening the door almost guarantees you'll be tricked into hiding under covers too soon. Even 5-volt throws you off at points, whether it be walking into said old man's way, spinning upside down, or taking the down escalator out of your bedroom. While the first stage is easy enough to beat, it gets much worse in the later stages. Along with harder microgames, 5-volt's behavior is faster and more terrifying, from opening and closing your doors rapidly, suddenly moving blazing speeds outside, straight up smashing your window open, and worst of all, leaping out of your TV, walking around your room, watching TV in your own room, forcing you to keep playing, before rushing right next to your bed, before either slowly walking out or leaping out of the window like a maniac. It's definitely made an impression on the WarioWare series for sure, later returning in WarioWare Gold. But regardless if you pass, fail, get caught, or fall asleep, it's a fun subversion of the WarioWare microgames, and more than earns the number 4th spot. Also, if this mode's too nerve-wracking, or if you just want to play the microgames themselves, 18-volt has the same mode, only without parental supervision. Putting a Metroid game on here both feels appropriate, yet cheating. Compared to other Nintendo franchises, it seems more mature and has plenty of obstacles to keep you on your toes. Now, Super Metroid pulls a lot from the NES Metroid, but it has its own unique twists and expansions. Mother Brain is no different either. While both have you shooting down tubes while avoiding the donuts of death to reach her, it's when you destroy her first phase in the OG Metroid a self-destruct activates. In Super Metroid, holy crap, what is that? I mean seriously, look at it. It's drooling purple liquid, it stumbles around like a dinosaur, an overall kaiju in both tech and flesh that looks like it could gobble up Samus in one gulp, and it's an overall beast as well, taking dozens of missiles, super missiles, and power bombs while shooting both finger and eye beams, not helped by the sound design. Mother Brain's moans and screams are dreadful on their own, but the music just adds to the tension, with booming beats and long chords that make you feel like you're up against a true monster. Nothing you can do to this thing can truly take it down, as it slowly picks at your health. That's not considering that after a while, it'll fire its own hyper beam. You can't avoid it. It does massive damage, leaves you stun locked, and just for added kicks, it drains your missile and power bomb reserves. And worst of all, it can be spammed repeatedly, dwindling you down to your last health box. Thankfully though, right before the final blow takes place, the baby that you saved comes in to save the day, stun Mother Brain and heal you up right before Mother Brain kills said baby, right in front of your face, but at the same time, thankfully it comes with its own hyper beam, which destroys Mother Brain in a couple hits. While you could say this eases the tension, I wouldn't say it's nearly enough to take it off the list. While sure, nowadays it's become one of the most iconic moments in the Metroid history, but for the time, and for new players, it was just as terrifying to both watch and play through, and having your weapons be useless until the very end just makes it more terrifying. Ridley and Kraid may rank as Metroid's most popular villains, but I can't deny that Mother Brain more than earns the title of one of the series' main antagonists with a battle like this. So you may have seen a lot of common themes and elements on this list. Enemies that chase you, throwing you off guard, freaky designs in a mostly safe game. So for number 1, it's an interesting case as it both catches you off guard and makes you panic, yet the design's not that scary. I mean, it's just water. Okay, there's a little more to it than just that. The whole level itself of the submerged castle is number 1. Only blue Pikmin are allowed inside, and despite that, it has all the major traps down there. Some like fire and poison are easy enough to take care of, but the explosions and the electricity are both insta-kill, and can come right out of nowhere and kill a massive amount of Pikmin in one go. But I'll give the level this. It offers a geyser out on each floor, and acts as the bulb bin, which can resist all elements, but soon you'll learn that those aren't necessarily crutches, they're almost necessary. Along with the elements, it also has some of the most terrifying creatures in the whole game, from the fiery bulborbs, wallybogs, and careening Dirigi bugs, all of whom can cause Pikmin genocide if given in the wrong hands. Not to mention, while where you spawn and the treasure's locations are mostly randomly generated, it isn't uncommon for foes to have treasures in them or be heavily guarded. Plus the fact that the previously mentioned traps can really tamper with taking the loot back for yourself, with Pikmin often being too slow to avoid the oncoming danger, and in some cases, be stupid enough to head directly towards danger. Now, those who haven't played it could just say to take the slow and disarm the traps one by one. Well, those players haven't heard the true reason this is number 1 comes crashing down if you stay in a room for too long. The Water Wraith. A being that the game says its physical form is anchored in another dimension, and sends the snarky ship into a panic mode. But what you really need to know, however, is that it's fast, actively hunts you down, completely invulnerable to any and all attacks, and can get destroyed literally anything in its path. Pikmin, enemies, he can even go through hazards, and by destroy, I mean he could potentially crush up to a whole platoon if you're not careful. Now, a lot of people say just to wait for the Wraith to spawn, and have him take care of the traps and enemies for you, but here's the conundrum. Pikmin are very slow and stupid, as I said before, even when fully flowered, and when it's not hunting down active captains, it'll probably squish unattended Pikmin and chase down any captains that are in play, and if a Pikmin ever gets caught on a wall or randomly trips, they're screwed. Not to mention, for nearly all floors, the exit below is covered up and needs to be broken in order to access. Heck, there are many treasures locked behind walls as well, and the water wraith can't knock them down, and attacking the walls while sits around is almost a death wish as you can't do anything. So you could have the water wraith take out the traps and enemies, but that leaves you too exposed, so getting the treasure and attacking it first makes it a bit faster, but very rarely will you have time to do everything all at once. There is no true optimal strategy here. And as always, the music is terrifying to listen to, both the somber and haunting exploration and the heart-racing water wraith chase theme. And that's what cements the water wraith and the submerged castle at number 1. Sure, there are strategies that can work, and sure, the 5th floor boss fight with him isn't all that scary, but the struggle to get there, the intimidating enemies and hazards, and the exclusive monster, which turns this standard dungeon into a nightmare, makes it more than deserving of number 1. While some enemies might be tougher, other games may be scarier, but for me, I don't think there's a game that's ever made me panic and dread a singular moment before than this place, in a non-horror game at least.